Welcome back to day 47 of our chess journey to 1500 ELO on chess.com. Let's just jump on ahead into our browser today and find a game. Now, we have lost quite a few games recently, but I'm hoping we will turn it around today with a win. I see we have Mexic751 from Argentina. Let's see if we are able to get a Najdorf today. We aren't. We get this move here, which I think e6 is quite decent against it to blunt this diagonal. I think this, or this might be okay as well. I think I would like to start out with this move, developing our knight to get closer to castling, and it forces a response from our opponent because this pawn is hanging. Now we could play this, I think, or this. I think I might prefer e6, simply because it has a dual purpose of potentially developing our bishop along this diagonal, or up here rather, and it also blunts this, as I mentioned. It takes away this potential outpost, but that's not likely to be an issue though. And now, what are we going to do? There might be an argument for a6, taking away those squares and maybe playing for more space. This might be a move, although this might still be an idea, so I don't think we want to blindly develop our knight up here. So now our opponent has shown their cards and castled, so if we take too long to castle ourselves, we might get pressured a whole lot. I think we might have time for this though, because this pawn on e6 is not easily dislodged. First, I just want to make sure this doesn't come with any horrible threats. I think this is okay for us. So let's play a6 here. We're still 2 moves away from castling, but I'm not seeing an immediate threat by our opponent. We get this move, but honestly I think they can't really take care because they have to respond to this move and go back, probably, I guess. But if they do go back here, this hits the knight, and they lose a defender on this square. So let's have a quick look here. This and this. The knight can't really jump up here, so it might jump to the side here. Just move those arrows away. And then this. What happens if they take? Then we take. They take, we take. I guess they slide on over, attacking our king. We could slide on back and try to play up a pawn, but without castling rights, which I think might be okay because we are able to get our pieces out in that following position. That's quite deep, but I think that should work. Our opponent goes back, like this. I do want to check here whether we have this move prior to taking. But the queen just comes up, I think, and defends this pawn. And we can't do a whole lot about that. So instead, I think we play b4. Now this knight is forced to jump on over here, where it is going to be a bit weak as well and undefended. Yeah, let's jump in here. Now, is there an argument here for playing an in-between move? Could we, for example, hit our opponent's knight like this, forcing a response and then taking? That might be an interesting idea. And this move, forcing a response. This loses the knight. They can't move the knight, so they would have to defend it. Those squares here are off limits. So this, I think, forces this move. And then when we take here, if they take and we take, they can't take our queen because we have our bishop in between here. So this is no longer an option, and we are still able to castle. So I think I like this line a whole lot more. So let's go for this. And now this move here threatens this potentially at some point. Let's say they take, we take here, they break apart their pawns, and we jump in and force a trade here. That might be an idea. I'm not quite sure what the best move is though. They do take. But let's have a quick look here, because I think this might be good for us. If we take here, I'm realizing there might be some interesting tactic as well. Going here. Because if we go here, now they can block with this knight. My thought was they might have to go here and then we take, so we take the knight, they take, and we have a fork like this. But instead here I think this might be what we're looking for. The queen is going to end up here to defend the bishop. So wherever it goes, we take, and then we take here, and I'm quite happy with this position. As long as we make sure this rook is defensible, or defendable rather, and I think it is, we can go here and it's covered. So let's make sure we play the correct move order, as anything else would be quite awkward. This, I think, was what we looked at first, and we have two double isolated pawn islands here in our opponent's position. And now we take here, or move in rather. This is not a move because of this pawn. I'm just quickly scanning for different tactics here, but I'm not seeing a whole lot. So let's go for the line we looked at. We take here, and they will take. And now I think we just take this pawn and cash in. Then I'm expecting this, hitting our queen. We will move out of the way, probably with this move, to hit them with tempo. So we can move our bishop and castle. So let's go up here. They move their bishop first. And then what is our best move? Our queen is still likely to get hit at some point here. I would like to play like this now, I think. This pawn is a bit weak. This doesn't do anything at all because the rooks are connected now. Honestly, I think I prefer playing bishop to e7 here. And anticipating this move, our response will probably be this and castling. I don't want to move our queen preemptively here, because we want to get to castling as quickly as possible, I think. Otherwise, our opponent is going to double up on the d-file, and we can't really deal with it, because we won't have our rooks to challenge our opponent's rooks. This, I think, should be the best square, covering infiltration squares for our opponent's rooks. And then this bishop can't immediately shut down this diagonal at least. This is not as good. I want to connect our rooks, so the queen has to move up, and those squares here seem passive. So let's go up here. This also defends this pawn one more time, so it's not as urgent of a weakness to deal with. Now we might see this or this at some point soon. But I don't think that's too scary. We just take back with this pawn, and we keep our pawns connected over here. Now I was looking for a way to disrupt our opponent's rooks. What I was considering now was this, and something like this, just getting into their position and getting a great outpost for our bishop. But that's too slow, I think. We need to castle first, and then we might look for tactics like that. I want to make sure we don't have this, but I'm not really seeing it. So let's castle, and our opponent will play here probably, but then we would be happy to trade down material, because our position, our endgame here is quite good. We are up a pawn, and also our opponent's pawn structure is a lot worse than ours. Is this our move, or is this our move connecting our rooks? Let's have a quick look. I think I might want to develop our last piece here. But I think I prefer the knight on f6 to defend, and also to be able to get up here potentially. So I would like to develop through this square. Which means that we might want to trade off one pair of rooks and then come in like this and get our last rook down here. So let's go like this. They take, we have to take with the bishop. And then here, this. But then there is an awkward move here, this. I don't think it should be too bad though. We do still have to go out of the way here, or move out rather. Unless we want to play this, which honestly, no, it hangs a pawn, so we can't quite do that. Let's go for this. We don't want to lose this pawn, as it's going to be important if our opponent captures on b4 with their own pawn. Now we are probably like 2 moves away from being in a really good spot. We just have to get there without getting a losing position. Moving this knight and grabbing this file. Now I think we might have this move. I would have liked, as I mentioned, to get our knight up like this. That's unlikely, because we can't do that with a rook and queen on the file here. So let's instead go like this, and I'm expecting this, and then we go here potentially. Here I think this move is going to be important, because if we take here, our opponent gets some initiative and can pin us and be annoying. But if we play here, they have to deal with this threat, move the queen. It has to defend the rook. So let's say they go here, 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 and then I think we can take. And that's a lot better than just taking straight away, I think. It also importantly trades down material, which is what we want to do here. I am looking at the option here because of this queen moving over here, the option of taking here. Then we would hit the queen again and this pawn, but our pawns would be in an awkward spot. However, we would have this passed pawn, which we could use to our advantage. If they take, then we grab this open file, I think. And honestly, I think this position looks quite decent. So let's go for this. I hope this is not the worst of the two options, as this was okay as well. But we will see. I thought for a second we dropped this pawn, because this, and they have 2 attackers, whereas we have 1. But here they can't take here, because then we take the queen. So let's come up like this instead and see what our opponent decides to do. We always have the idea here of getting this knight onto this outpost and pushing the pawn, and then we will protect ourselves, I think. This is interesting now, hitting the queen and getting a good outpost from which we can push up like this. If the queen moves off the first rank, we have checkmate. So this might force a queen trade, and this would be a good position for us. Now we might be threatening, just pushing this pawn up all the way to c2 right now. We just have to make sure we don't hang any shenanigans like this, because we don't want to get pinned and get into an awkward position. This allows for us to play this move, I think. What happens if they pin? Well, that's not as fun. So we might go on ahead and push this pawn instead, which does look quite promising. What happens if they do this, trying to disallow us from pushing? Then I think this would win. The same fork as we looked at earlier. So let's push our pawn. What happens here? I think we might go back here and hit the bishop. This knight could hit our queen, but then we just move, and I don't see a lot of good ideas as a follow-up for our opponent. Now we are able to play like this. How will our opponent respond? This does look like a difficult move to play against. They can't line up this battery because we will be cutting their connection. So let's just play up, because this move was a bit slow and doesn't really deal with our threats, I think. Now, I think we can go here, preparing for this push. Just don't want to get too low on time here. So we'll play the move now. Now I did want to keep. Yeah, I just made a mistake, as is quite characteristic by me under time pressure. But now we do get a pawn in return. But then they have this. So this is not good for us at all. But we don't lose a whole lot to this, I think. No, it doesn't look good. Yeah, we might have to play an awkward move here. Make a concession and play. No, let's go here. I'm not all that happy with this position now. I managed to blunder the pawn. Hopefully this does not blunder the game. This is first, so let's play it. Now this is not a move I was expecting. Now I think we can just take this pawn and play with a new outside pass pawn. I thought our opponent would take this, but they didn't. So I guess it's game on once again. And now we have this with tempo to help us push this pawn. But what happens if our opponent plays this, hitting our bishop? This is a move I didn't quite see. Now this might be okay for us, because we would have this check and we would be able to take. Let's go here and start pushing, I think. This pin here is always going to be annoying. But it also means this queen has to stay on the 8th file, or rank rather, to apply their desired pressure. Now we are up 2 pawns here. So if we do have the option of trading down material, I think we will go for it, simply to have an easier game to play and as simple of a conversion as possible. Let's play up here. We are still covering this, so this is a blunder by our opponent. And now we should win this game quickly. This bishop is dominating the knight. So we might as well just go up here and start pushing. The knight can't jump in because of the bishop. And now this should be quite trivial. Let's just get our pieces back. This is probably not the best idea of, those aren't the best moves, but we are playing as solidly as possible here and playing quickly. And now we are gaining time with each move. I would like to play this actually, just locking down their pawns. Let's move our pawn up here and come up with our king as well. And now we should have this. And taking this pawn. This, and we check them as we take their pawn. So our opponent resigns, and we get a much sought after win today. After having quite a few losses recently, this is a nice break, or sorry, this is a nice vacation from losing town. Thanks a lot for the game, Mexique751. Thanks for the game. Now let's jump on ahead into our game review and see how we should have played differently. I see we did make a blunder and a mistake. So first of all, we played with an accuracy of 81.0 today, and our opponent played with 74.8. We had a Sicilian, Let me just bring the evaluation bar out, rather. Sorry, I'm just eating my own words today again, and see what we should have played here. This was a good move apparently, but the best move would have been this. We did play it in this position, and here we did induce some ideas by our opponent. Now this was something I did not see. Our opponent had a counter threat, pushing this pawn. Or at least that's what the evaluation says. The low depth computer doesn't quite realize it is a good move. But this computer still seems to lose a lot of evaluation. For some reason it says 0.65 here, but the evaluation bar says 0.17. There we go. Or actually, I'm not quite sure. As we jump into the review, it jumps on back, but it undoes the move. Well, we got this, and this was a slight mistake. Apparently, they could have defended with this pawn push. We got this, we took, and jumped in. Yeah, this was quite similar to the best move, which was d5. Here we did have a miss. This is a curious move. But this does make sense, as it seems to have won a pawn. But did we not win a pawn regardless? Apparently this was good for our opponent. Which does make sense, I'm seeing, because we can't move this bishop to develop, because then they would take this pawn. So I think we might have to play f6 here if we want to castle. And our queen can't come up to defend this either, because of the bishop and the knight. But this is a bit computerish. Most people don't give up a pawn like this just to make castling difficult and applying some pressure. Or at least not in my experience or at my level of chess. Those were best moves. We castled. The knight move was apparently good here. This was the maneuver I wanted to look at later on. And it does make sense, we could have played it here. As now we would have connected our rooks and we would have gotten our knight here onto a better square. I was a bit rushed with our castling to get to safety as quickly as possible. And this apparently lost our advantage because of this move, which neither of us saw. But here we can't take this bishop because of this checkmate. Or it's not really a checkmate, it would have lost us our queen as well. Which, yeah, this would have been quite losing, so that's a tactical miss by both of us. Well, we got to this position. This in-between move was best. And here the computer did bless this immediate capture. We went like this, which was honestly quite similar in evaluation. And once again, the computer blessed a different move, namely an immediate push. Why was this not that good? Because of king to f1. And I guess it's arguing their king is active or something. I'm not quite seeing it. Let's say we go here. King to e1. They apparently give up a pawn here. King to d2. And this, honestly, this doesn't seem all that human. Just giving up pawns and walking up. Well, we pushed, and this was a mistake. We should have just went behind the pawn. For some reason I thought we had to stay along this diagonal to prevent their knight from moving here. But this and this would not have been a move, as it still would have lost the knight. Well, we got into this position, and here we had basically lost our entire lead. They played this inaccurate move though, and we we took their pawn, and now we were in a good spot. Why was this a good move? Let's have a look here. I thought this didn't do all that much after this, but they had knight to d3 blocking. This is an incredible move. Definitely not a human move though. Giving up the knight. And then moving to g1 and maintaining this threat, which we couldn't really deal with. We would have had to play h6 or h5 and give up this bishop. But that's honestly not even close to being a human move. We got this, and this was apparently a blunder. Why? Knight to d3. Oh, it's the same idea, I think. If we take bishop to c5, and yeah, it's honestly not quite findable at this level of chess, I think. This is definitely not likely to happen, at least. It's an interesting tactic. It might be found in a puzzle if we know there is a tactic there, but this is a bit special, to say the least. We pushed. Apparently we should have moved back, but under time pressure I thought we might as well push, because how could that be a mistake? We got here and this. Apparently those were okay moves. And we moved up, and in this position our opponent resigned, as we would have just bulldozed on through and taken their pawns. Once again, thanks a lot for the game, Mexique751 from Argentina. This has been our game for today, guys. Thanks a lot for watching, and I hope to see you all tomorrow. Bye bye!